What's going on, my fellow rock and rollers? Don't forget to hit the bell notification icon to be notified every time I put out a new video on my channel. Back in 1993, Aerosmith was out on tour, supporting their smash hit album Get a Grip. Aerosmith was on a career resurgence after a pretty rough period, which saw guitarist Joe Perry and Bradley Whitford leaving the group in the early part of the 80s. The band would reunite in the mid-80s, and a collaboration with Run DMC in 1986 effectively revitalized their career, introducing them to a new audience. Following that collaboration, the band released a string of successful albums, including 1987's Permanent Vacation, 1989's Pump, and most recently at the time, 1993's Get a Grip. One of the bands Aerosmith took out on tour with them in 1993 was the heavy metal band Megadeth. What was supposed to be a 25-day tour with Dave Mustaine and company saw the band abruptly fired after only 7 shows. What happened? Stay tuned to find out. Aerosmith took out a variety of bands on their Get a Grip tour, including Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Four Non Blondes, Soul Asylum, Collective Soul, and Therapy. One of the stranger openers was Megadeth, given the band's different style of music. According to the book Rust in Peace, the inside story of the Megadeth Masterpiece, Mustaine struggled with addiction, and the only reason the band was on tour with Aerosmith was because the band's handlers thought in order for Mustaine to stay sober, he should only be on sober tours. Because of Mustaine's struggles with addiction, the band missed out on some pretty big opportunities, including opening for Pantera that same year. Bassist Dave Ellefson wrote in his autobiography My Life with Death, Discovering Meaning in Life and Rock and Roll, that things seemed to get off to a bit of a rocky start. 2 shows into the tour, Mustaine was unhappy with the way things were produced. According to Ellefson, the band wasn't getting a sound check or sufficient space on stage, meaning that the stage setup had no special backdrop or feeling of even being a Megadeth show. Ellefson and Mustaine felt that they had already paid their dues as a band, and they weren't some unknown group that Aerosmith would typically take on the road with them. Aerosmith frontman Steven Tyler talked to Ellefson and Mustaine directly to smooth things over, and it would turn out that Tyler, who had gone through his own addictions a decade prior, had offered help to Ellefson at one point prior to the tour, who was also struggling with addiction. Remembering that important moment in his life, the bassist thanked the singer for his help, and Tyler was now offering Mustaine any help he needed to stay clean. Things initially seemed to turn around at that point, or so Megadeth thought. Mustaine would tell the Houston Press that assurances made to the band about their sound check, playing time, signage, and stage space fell short of what he was promised, and Mustaine's frustrations only grew from there. The interviewer who was at the show in Houston where Megadeth opened for Aerosmith remembered the frontman's combative and angry attitude in the comments he made to the audience that night. 7 dates into the tour, the band was apparently fired by Aerosmith. Megadeth's label Capitol Records would issue a statement at the time claiming the band quit the tour over artistic restrictions. Aerosmith didn't see it that way, as guitarist Joe Perry would tell Entertainment Weekly and hint the band were wimps, claiming, "With Megadeth, we thought we had a hard rockin' animal that would lubricate the first 10 rows and get the audience ready for us." And Entertainment Weekly supposedly spoke to a person who worked with Aerosmith who claimed it was Megadeth frontman Dave Mustaine who was the real reason they were dropped from the tour, claiming that Mustaine was a giant pain in the butt, saying he would piss and moan and whine. What he was really upset with was that Aerosmith weren't hanging out with him. Mustaine claimed for his part that the band walked away from the tour, saying it's hard to dunk on someone when they're walking away. There was apparently several moments on tour that created bad blood with Aerosmith. According to Spin magazine, Mustaine allegedly blew his nose into an Aerosmith t-shirt that was tossed on stage during a show. Another sore point was a radio interview Mustaine gave in which he said, "Yeah, I think we ought to be headlining, but we don't mind because everyone knows this is Aerosmith's last hurrah." Mustaine would tell Spin magazine that by the time he made those comments on radio, they already wanted off the tour. Steven Tyler, meanwhile, replied in the press saying, "Dave, we'd like to help you out. Which way did you come in?" Ouch. Ellefson would reveal in his book how the band learned about how they were fired, saying that the band was in Lubbock, Texas, ahead of a scheduled show, and went to a local Mexican restaurant where the waitress who was waiting on their table informed them that she had heard that the band Jackal was going to open for Aerosmith that night and not Megadeth. Ellefson felt deflated by the news and by the fact that they had lost several other important opportunities, including the ability to tour with Pantera and White Zombie, and the fact that the band had to cancel Japan not once but twice. Ellefson would also claim in his book that it would soon spell the beginning of the end for guitarist Marty Friedman. And Mustaine would reflect back on where his anger came from on that tour during an interview with the Houston Press, revealing, "That was a different Dave, before I was saved and doing heroin." He also thinks that some jealousy played a part in his actions, claiming, "I wanted my life to be better, and I saw that theirs was because they had gotten sober. So yeah, we were probably a little snotty," he'd say. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. If you guys have suggestions for future topics, let me know in the comment section below. Take care.